All right, we've got 1 more minute, and then I'll call end transect.
1 more minute.
Okay, and I missed the mark there, but 13:55:20, we'll call that end transect.
End transect.
Oh, Wayne was just dying to zoom there.
Yeah, I gotta earn my money.
Okay, so our goal is still to get to our next waypoint as expediently as possible, but we are able to zoom and turn and
That's
look
a
at
different
things.
flatfish. I haven't seen one like that, or not many.
Yeah, I would say to be as expedient as possible, we would just maintain our current heading and speed.
Okay,
There he is. What is
there
that?
we go.
Yeah.
Looks like it might be a Dover sole.
Oh yes, very good eating. Yum yum yum. Which square you want? In which one? 11.
I need 11.
How?
Yeah, we're back in, yeah, this is wire cam. I need 11. Put it in winch.
How about 6? 6 doesn't look
You put it in
very
9.
useful. 6
9.
works.
How
Okay,
about 12?
stand by.
9 works.
How about all of them?
Let's just put it up.
9. We'll go with 9. Multi-9.
Future winch. I wouldn't say future winch is useless.
Oh,
Future
that
winch
is
and past.
very nice. Look at that flat
Pass
ocean.
monitor.
Oh my gosh.
Stand-up paddle day. That's my dream someday, Danny, is to stand up paddle at Cordell Bank National Marine
Wouldn't that be
Sanctuary.
great?
Maybe even swim. Rexel. Ooh.
Someone tuning in is curious about invasive species in this area. What are some examples of invasives that have influenced other populations or habitat health?
I think that. Do you have any ideas about that, Danny? Invasive species.
Are there invasive species in?
Well, in this area and how that might influence this ecology.
Well, I know there are a few things that that are invasive that we're concerned about. One is a green cat crab along the coast, and that's been found locally and can be destructive along coastlines. And there are some algal species. Undaria is one that has been found in harbors and has been recently found in Bodega Harbor that they are concerned about and trying to remove before it's able to spread. There's a few ones I'm aware of. We've got Tom Leidig, a scientist at the National Marine Fisheries Service, who's joined us as a scientist ashore. Welcome, Tom. And Tom is a rockfish expert, and he's going to help us identify some of the fish that we're seeing. So most of the fish that we're seeing on the seafloor right now, the rockfish, are striped tail rockfish.
Another species of concern for invasive is a tunicate. Specifically near shore, but I know we've been concerned about it offshore too, called didymnum. And it's kind of like pancake batter, just can smother benthic habitat. And it's affected other areas, not on the west coast offshore, but I believe in France. It's hurt some benthic habitats, and it's definitely near shore and some of the estuaries.
So our goal right now is we're moving as expediently as possible across the seafloor to get to our next waypoint 2F, but now that we are, we finished a transect mode, and so we can zoom in and out at will, and I'd love to get some nice looks at these fish, especially while we have Tom online to help us dial in our fish IDs.
Almost missed that guy. They're everywhere now. He wants his 15 minutes.
Tom says the flatfish we are seeing are Rex soles and Dover soles.
Mm-hmm. Also known as tasty. Yeah, sorry. I can zoom out. Sorry. Coming wide.
So it looks like the Rexol are the more elongated ones, and the Dover ones are the, I think that's a Dover there. Can we get a zoom on that rockfish that's coming up right to the lasers?
Yes. Let's get in.
Oh, and that's a Rexol, the one that's more elongated there.
Right. And another rockfish. Oh, let's give him a...
Well, speaking about flatfish being tasty, Tom tells us that it's not good to eat Dover sole in winter because they add more water to their bodies and they lose muscles and they become jellied and very limp when you catch them. So they're not as tasty in winter.
Good to know.
Can we get a zoom on that rockfish coming up to the left of the lasers?
You should be able to catch him.
Okay. Oh, kind of a weird angle.
Yeah. Antonella, you're okay with the zooming? Yeah. Okay. Okay. There's another one. There's a bunch of them. Yeah, all the flatfish remind me of mini halibut. So I spent some time in Alaska and actually ended up catching one as big as I was.
Nice.
So
I'm reading that a lot of sole have a parasite, an ectoparasite, and I was just curious if we could learn more from the specialist that's you're speaking to.
I'll see what I can find out. Tom says that flatfish get a parasite that's an isopod that lives on their gills, and then they suck the blood out of the fish through the gills. So that sounds quite gruesome. An isopod is a little tiny crustacean.
Bring your heading back to 90 or 91 for a little bit. Yeah. Okay.
People tuning in are
No,
also
that's fine.
interested.
I thought it was me.
People tuning in are also curious about what rockfish eat.
These rockfish that live on the bottom like this are likely eating small crustaceans and small fish that they come across.
Yeah, we could do a reset. We could do a reset. A DBL reset.
Tom says that the rockfish diet can be really varied. They're opportunistic and eat whatever they can. So a lot of times in these deep sea environments where there's food is not when they're sitting on the bottom and just not moving around, roaming a lot around for food, so they'll just eat whatever they can come across.
Reminds me of my favorite line from my 2nd grade play. I'm on a seafood diet. When I see food, I eat it. You really ought to try it. Had to at some
That's
point.
great. That's perfect for rockfish. For sole, or for the Rex and the Dover sole, they mostly eat worms from the sediment. We just had Jan join us in the van. I'm going to chat with her a little bit about what we've been doing and what we're doing next.
Sounds great. And Jenny, one person tuning in was curious about catch regulations. I know that on the East Coast there's size regulations for different commercial fish and different sport fish, and also sometimes bag limitations, how many fish you can take. I know with flounder, fluke on the East Coast, numbers in terms of size changed as population dynamics changed to help protect some of these fish species. Do you have any understanding of catch regulations out here?
Yeah, there are lots. Fisheries in the state of California. So we are within state waters right now. We're really close to shore. Actually, I'm not 100% sure that. It looks like we are. But state of California sets regulations that if you have a permit in California, you need to follow those regulations. And those are set to help the fisheries as much as possible, and also to comply with the state marine protected areas that we have varied throughout the coast. There's a network of state marine protected areas which have varied levels of allowance and prohibitions for fishing. And those were set up to try to restore some of the overfished fish stocks in state waters. And so there are a couple in this area. They're all up and down the state, and some of the early research monitoring from looking in those MPAs after these closures took effect are seeing some positive benefits and spillover for fish to be spilling out of the MPAs, making them available for catching. So it's definitely depends on the fish people are targeting, and the regulations change regularly. So it's definitely on the fisher person to stay up on the regulations based on the species they want to catch. How many miles are we off the coast right now?
Stand by. Uh, 315 meters. Sorry, 315 kilometers is. Oh, I can't read. Only 17 nautical miles.
Oh, okay.
Closest point is about 14.
Oh, so we are in federal waters.
Nice and protected here.
Okay, I'm back. I was just talking with Jan Roletto, my co-lead on this cruise, and she is the research coordinator in Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary. This is her priority area she wanted to investigate, so she's just woke up this morning and gave her a rundown of what we've been doing. And we only have a few hours left in this dive. We're planning to be on deck at noon, so we're trying to get over to the next waypoint so that the next watch will have some time to explore before we come up. I've been seeing some star-shaped depressions in the sand, and that is a sea star that can bury itself in the sand.
Yeah.
Here's a
Yeah, I noticed those when I zoomed in a little bit.
that's a metridium anemone that has pulled itself in, that white blob there. That we are, yeah, so that was the original plan, but we have been improvising, so we are, we're not doing that on this, this portion of the dive. What we've been doing is trying to get enough transects in different types of habitat, and so we have plenty of transects in the soft habitat, so we don't need to do those transects now.
Antonella, it sounds like a lot of the people tuning in are students and are really curious about becoming an ROV pilot. Can you share a little bit more about your story? How did you get interested in engineering and piloting ROVs?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I first got interested in engineering in high school. I was part of the first robotics competition, which is kind of worldwide now. There are a lot of teams. I think they're in the 7,000 or 8,000 maybe teams worldwide. So it's gotten more accessible to people. It's a really good experience for getting involved in learning about what engineering is. And that sort of sparked my interest in robotics. I started out studying mechanical engineering, but then my degrees are in computer science. And when I was at UCSD, I got more involved in ocean engineering and learned about the internship program a year ago and was encouraged to apply. And that's sort of how I got involved in ROV piloting. So yeah, a pretty fairly well-rounded engineering background I think helps, but there are definitely many pathways to ROV piloting.
So neat.
Thank you.
And just because these stories are kind of fun, Taylor Ann, our ocean science intern, can you tell us a little bit more about your story and your pathway to EV Nautilus?
Yeah, sure. So I actually did my undergrad at Ball State University in Indiana, so nowhere near the ocean, but I always had a fascination with the ocean.
Let's get a zoom on this rockfish here.
And as I studied there, I just got an undergraduate degree in biology.
That guy?
Yep.
And volunteered in an algal ecology
What's
lab.
that guy?
And
flatfish?
just got some experience through
Lab,
that lab
the
experience, I guess. I
Dover
didn't really do
sole we have
much
here.
related to the ocean sciences. But as I
There's a
worked my way up
starfish
after graduation, I
impression.
went to Duke University Marine Lab, where I did some marine research for the first time on ocean acidification and its implications on oyster aquaculture. And from there, I just took some courses and started applying to grad school. And a professor there, actually, Dr. Cindy Vandover, told me about this program that Nautilus Ocean Exploration Trust has with the EV Nautilus. And so I applied and found my way here, and it's been an amazing experience so far. I really like this position. It's long hours and weird hours, but it's really good practice at making observations and taking notes and a lot of the basic things you need to know as a scientist. So it's been pretty awesome, though. Everybody here is really friendly and comes from diverse backgrounds and expertise areas.
Cool, thank you both for sharing. And just a reminder to people listening that these internship applications and the Science Communication Fellowship applications are now open on nautiluslive.org, as well as Ocean Exploration Trust.
There's a rockfish coming up that might let us get a good view of it close up. There we go.
Yeah, being closer helps, thanks.
Miles, someone watching is curious about the data team and the kind of behind the scenes data folks that help. Can you shine any light on that work?
Not my department. I can try if you have a more specific question.
I really don't. They just asked if we could talk a little bit about their work data, how it plays a role in sharing EV Nautilus's expeditions.
I would say we couldn't do it without them. Basically, every sensor, every portion of what we do is logged in some way by the data engineering team through sensor integration and
zoom
computer
there on
systems
that rockfish.
and everything.
Looks
We
like
really
a green
couldn't
stripe.
do what we do without the data engineering team.
And zoom out.
Well, how many terabytes will this cruise be of data?
Just data. It'll probably, we're not doing much mapping, so it'll be probably just a couple gigs. Video will probably approach several terabytes.
Wow.
Wayne can clue us into what our sort of hourly data consumption is for video.
Yeah, we take about it's not as much as you would think. It's about 4,000 gigabytes per 24 hours for video. So right now, if I look at the drive array that we have where we store our video, I can check how much space is left. We have 26 terabytes free out of an 85 terabyte array. And yeah, it's about 4 terabytes for 24 hours.
So how many semi-trucks of VHS tapes does that work out to be?
I haven't done the conversion.
What about DVDs?
Actually, you'd be surprised. Probably about 1 DVD per day.
There's a hagfish.
It looks like we're starting to get some sonar targets there. Looks like there's going to be a few more of these steps coming up.
Nice. So Tom Leidig, our scientist ashore, fish expert, is telling us that he's seen a few slender soles as well. So we'll keep an eye out for that. So far we've seen Rex sole, Dover sole, and slender sole. These are striped tail rockfish. They have that white bar at the tail. That's a distinguishing feature. Oh, there's that one's different. Let's zoom on that rockfish. There we go.
Much paler.
That is a
Look at all those brachiopods.
oh yeah.
Sea stars are all lined up.
That looks like the
Okay.
same type of fish
Mm-hmm.
with his little fins.
Here we've got a green spotted rockfish.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Tom saw a sculpin that I missed, an Isolinus sculpin. Very cryptic, so I missed it.
We have and a
Green spotted rockfish.
Okay. This is starting to get interesting.
Yeah.
Let's see. Let's see what this guy is.
Oh. Okay, that's different. See if Tom gives me an idea on that.
Oh,
There's a flag. I can do the flag. That one's pretty easy.
There's another one that also has stripes like that.
yeah.
Look at the coloration on those anemones.
Oh yeah, that's interesting.
Orange. With those stomphia.
Okay, coming wide.
It was a bank rockfish that we had seen swimming by. And now we're back to the mud.
Mm-hmm.
Zoom on this rockfish.
He might be running away from
That
us.
looks like the striped tail again.
Yeah. Ooh, he's going away. Okay. We got a flatfish right in the middle.
There we go.
Here we go. Hello.
A striped tail again.
Mm-hmm.
That flatfish that we zoomed in on was a wreck sole.
You can send it offsets anytime.
Here's a couple more.
I overcorrected and brought you back, and now I'm trying to
That looks like
tune
a
it.
Dover sole to me.
Mm-hmm. It's quite a few of them.
And the DVL. It's the head offset.
Tiny ones.
Which is now why you're to the north of Argus. No. Yeah, USBL, I moved the vehicle from south of Argus to north of Argus and converged the DVL and USBL path. Right, but if I told the vehicle that it was steering, it was oversteering, it drove back. Because I changed the angle of the head.
Oh.
Nav, what's our distance and time to point 2F?
We've never been closer.
Hercules is 765 meters out, 50 minutes.
Great, vehicle will get there shortly after the next watch change, and they should have a chance to start exploring that area. It looks like before we get to that point, things might start getting interesting, so we might have some different habitat to look at as we approach 2F in the next 50 minutes.
Keep a weather eye on that Mesotech 10-meter division, so it looks out 50 meters. You'll get a heads up, looking for red, yellow.
More striped tails.
Haven't seen a hake in a while.
Mm-mm. We lost them.
These little fish darting around in the sand are myctophids. They're also lanternfish.
Okay. There's another flatfish.
I'm sorry, Dan, I think I missed if you were what you were saying.
I was saying you can keep a weather eye on our Mesotech up there on the starboard side. It's 10-meter division, so it's looking out 50 meters. So the bright yellow and red will tell you what excitement to come.
Great, thank you.
Sometimes the back row sees stuff up there on that thing, and we tend not to look at it for a while if it's been flat. So.
And new viewers just wanted a reminder about the lasers, their purpose, and why they exist.
Those lasers are mounted on top of the camera, and they are 10 centimeters apart, and they shoot 2 parallel lines. So they help us determine if we are the scale of whatever object.
Is that a slender soul?
Let's see, what was he?
Oh, just out of screen.
Yeah.
Tom will tell me if that's a slender soul or not.
But sometimes it's difficult to judge whether or not you have a small fish that is very close to the lens, or a larger fish that is much further away. So these lasers, since we know they are 10 centimeters apart, whenever it hits the surface of any object, we know precisely the size of that object, no matter how close it is to the ROV or the camera.
So why does it look like the lasers are further apart in the top of the screen and closer together the farther away they get, even though they're parallel?
That's a very good question, but the reason that is you can notice the material, or the snow in the water column. If you're in very clear water, you actually don't see the lasers at all. So the laser is actually hitting some of the snow that's very close to the camera, and that's why at the top of the frame you see the lasers are 10 centimeters apart, and then as they travel away from the camera, that distance appears to converge, but it actually does not. Those are parallel lines that are shooting straight off the top of the laser. If we can actually pull up on bubble cam, we can actually take a look at the top of the camera and show the actual lasers that on top of the camera, how they're mounted. So let's go to set field and go to Herc bubble. Yeah, there you go. So you can see that the green lasers that are shooting out in parallel on top of the camera, and they're not pointing together. They are pointing straight away from the camera, each of them, to give us our 10 centimeter reference points. So.
Thanks for that, Laser 101. I didn't actually know the reasoning for the distance of the laser beams at the top of the screen, so thank you.
That's a good shot of our Zeus Plus too. A little plug for Insight
Oh
Pacific.
yeah, hold on, let me put that.
Talk about that one for a minute.
Let me, oh, you mean the camera, in general?
The camera that costs more than my house.
Yeah, it's a pretty special piece of kit. It's actually the housing that you're seeing is one solid piece of metal, and it's circular, so it can withstand quite a bit of pressure. And then the lens itself,
Titanium.
It's titanium, yeah. The lens itself is extremely thick acrylic, and it's convex, so it will have the right optical properties for underwater viewing. So you can just see the convex lens, the curvature of it sticking out from around the shield with the sticker on it, the Insight Pacific sticker. So yeah, it's pretty special.
I think it's It's Pyrex or Gorilla Glass, the
It's-
same stuff that's on the cover
Okay,
of my
so it
iPhone.
is actual glass then.
Yeah, I thought it was glass.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's the company that makes it is Pyrex, same stuff that
Oh.
your measuring cup in your kitchen is,
Yeah, that would make more sense.
but optically clear.
Yeah.
And then there's a diopter in there between the camera and the lens. Not sure what that does.
Folks might just be waking up and joining us. So we're diving in Greater Farallones National Marine Sanctuary, and our dive objectives are to be surveying these areas, some different areas that are have different management regulations. And we have been exploring areas outside management zones, and we have explored an area that is in an area that's proposed to be closed to fishing, and now we are going to be entering an area that is, let's see, where are we headed to? So we're going to an area that's going to be remaining closed. So it's closed and it's going to stay closed. So we want to explore these different areas, understand what habitats are here and how any management changes may affect these habitats. So we are headed towards a point that looks like it has some interesting habitat, and as we get there, we'll have a watch change in the next few minutes, so you might hear us get quiet as we continue to transit over to that next point.
I also want to reiterate that the area that we are in has never been explored before, and in 2015, the National Marine Sanctuary of Cordell Bank and the Greater Farallones almost doubled, they expanded. And so therefore we're focusing a lot of these expeditions in new areas, in areas that we haven't done such characteristic and comprehensive surveys in. And I just find that to be really exciting and want to make sure that everyone knows that detail as well.
The ocean up here has had a long relationship with the coast in terms of the economy and kind of the history of California. It's known as the Redwood Coast, and there were some ports along the coast here where boats would come in, and they called them dog hull ports because they're so small, a dog couldn't even turn around in them. And it's a place where people come in, boats would come in, load up lumber to bring down to San Francisco. It's also coastal land and waters of some native Californians, coastal Miwok and Kashaya Pomo, and they're still here, living on the coast in some of the communities on the Sonoma coast. And we also had a Russian settlement that established itself to take advantage of hunting sea otters and northern fur seals for pelts and selling them. And there's a great historic park on the coast there that interprets that history and has a living history program for students to learn about how the ocean was used historically and lessons we've learned from those days. Now we protect those species.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jenny. This is a beautiful stretch of coastline off the coast of California here. It's not very developed, pretty wild, pretty rough, lots of craggy beaches and coves, and just a really stunning location. So we're, our navigator told us we were about 15 to 17 nautical miles off the coast, so not too far out there, and excited to explore what the seafloor off that beautiful coastline looks like.
A lot of ocean influence on that coastal habitat and coastal communities, and you know, a lot of people that live up there and choose to live there because of the presence of the ocean and the beauty that it brings. And someone asked about shipwrecks earlier, and I found some information that there's about 200 shipwrecks on this section of the coast, and the majority of them being lumber schooners that were lost in the trade on shore because there wasn't a lot of navigation systems back in the 1800s. Their shoreline was described as jagged rocks above the water, sunken rocks, foul bottom, and breakers. Not words that people in boats want to hear about. But they're there.
Yesterday on the EV Nautilus, I found a binnacle, which is a type of compass and probably something similar to the technologies that those ships had. We obviously have far more technology in our bridge now to help EV Nautilus navigate from point to point and throughout its expeditions.
Looks like a big sand wave there.
Yeah, Guy was just pointing out that it looked like we just went over a big sand wave. We haven't seen a lot of that. Earlier we saw some kind of smaller sand waves, but we are approaching what looks like it might be some habitat coming up, some rockier habitat, so maybe that's influencing what we're seeing here.
Yeah, we're starting to get some returns in the sonar, some color there. Maybe a few steps and dips coming up. Or more sand waves.
Nav, could you put that slope map back up that was on earlier?
Do you remember the name of it?
Green spotted rockfish off to the left side of the screen there.
And thanks to schools in Houston, Brian Gonzalez, and his students for tuning in. We're also super excited to be working with